Today, 7 in 10 Filipinos trust President Aquino and are satisfied with his performance. Despite harsh words for underperforming officials, President Aquino shifts to a message of inclusive growth in his State of the Nation address. And the royal baby watch continues as the Duchess of Cambridge goes into labor. Hello, I'm Maria Ressa. Welcome to Rappler, your social news network. On the day of the President's State of the Nation address, Pulse Asia and social weather stations say 7 in 10 Filipinos trust President Benigno Aquino and are satisfied with his performance. Polls conducted in June show the President's ratings suffer a little in Luzon and Mindanao. But large gains in Visayas lift his ratings, pushing the average significantly higher compared to surveys in March. The SWS survey conducted June 28 to 30th shows Aquino has satisfaction ratings of 76%. Only 12% are dissatisfied, giving Aquino a net satisfaction rating of 64%. It's higher than his 59% net ratings in March. Pulse Asia also shows 77% continue to trust Aquino and 73% approve of his performance. Malacanang welcomes the survey results. In a statement, presidential spokesman Edwin Lacerda says, "We take these survey results as an affirmation that our reforms are producing results." On the day of the State of the Nation address, Rappler takes a look at the economy 3 years after President Aquino assumed office. In 2010, the Philippines grew 7.3%, but in the first quarter of 2013, the economy defied expectations and grows a stunning 7.8%, the fastest since Aquino took office. Despite these gains, the country's poverty incidence stays the same, 27.9% in January to June 2012 versus 28.6% and 28.8% in the same months of 2009 and 2006. The economy also puts more Filipinos in the labor force. From 35.4 million working Filipinos in April 2010, the number rises to 37.819 million as of April 2013. Still, the number of unemployed and underemployed rise in 2013 compared to 2010. As of April 2013, 3.086 million Filipinos are unemployed, while 7.252 million are underemployed, a rise from 6.298 million in 2010. Inflation, or the rise in consumer prices, remained within the government's 3 to 5% target from 2010 until the middle of 2013. The Aquino administration also trimmed its budget deficit, helping it win investment grade status for the first time since 2013. Tax agencies collect 708.374 billion pesos in revenue collections by the end of May 2013, up from 500 billion pesos in the same period in 2010. Government debt continues to rise in the last few years, but at a slower pace during Aquino's term. Tourist arrivals continue to grow thanks to a government campaign and cheap flights. From 1.3 million foreign tourists in January to May 2010, the figure rises to 2.01 million tourists in the same period in 2013. Foreign direct investments in the country also continue to grow from 772 million in January to May 2010 to $1.577 billion during the same period in 2013. The peso also strengthens against the US dollar as investors put funds in local stocks and other emerging market assets. President Aquino shifts his administration's focus from anti-corruption to inclusive growth in his State of the Nation address. Natasha Gutierrez reports.
5 automated water level monitoring
We
stations,
cannot wait for progress to trickle down to the poor. We have to act. This is the promise President Benigno Aquino III makes in his 4th State of the Nation address. Aquino talks about his accomplishments from the past year, spanning health, education, infrastructure, and more. He says reforms will focus on the poor.
Ang strategiya, sagarin ang oportunidad para sa lahat, lalo na para sa mga mas nangangailangan. Hindi natin pakay maghintay ng trickle down. Hindi pwedeng baka sakali o tsamba lang silang daratnan ng mga biyaya ng kaunlaran.
Among the success stories from the last year, the expansion of the government's poverty alleviation program, books and chairs for schools, moving informal settlers from danger zones, the peace framework for the Bangsamoro, and the stellar 7.8% economic growth. Aquino also mentions the reproductive health, the syntax, the Armed Forces of the Philippines Modernization Act, and the K-12 law.
Malawakang transformasyon ng lipunan ng aking hangarin at mulat akong marami akong kailangang banggain para matupad ito. Pero hindi po ako pinalaki ng aking mga magulang para tumiklop lamang sa mga hamon. Hindi ko maharap ang aking sarili kung tinanggihan ko ang pagkakataong bawasan ang pagdurusang hindi naman dapat dinaraanan ng Pilipino.
But the daang matuwid of the last 3 years has given way to a new buzzword: inclusive growth.
The President's State of the Nation address marks a shift in priorities. Aquino emphasizes inclusive growth, saying this will guide the government in all its decisions in the next 3 years. But there were still touches of his anti-corruption campaign.
He doesn't miss the chance to hit the inefficiency of government agencies on irrigation, immigration, and customs.
Marami pong gabi, bago ako matulog, talagang akin po iniisip, kulang na lang yata sabihin nilang wala akong pakialam kung mapunta sa masamang loob ang armas. Wala akong pakialam kung ilang buhay ang masira ng droga. Wala akong pakialam kung habang buhay na matigang ang masakahan. Ang mahalaga, yumaman ako. Bahala ka sa buhay mo. Hindi maaaring ganito ang kalakaran sa pamahalaan. Kung hindi mo magagawa o nagagawa ang iyong trabaho, hindi ka karapat-dapat na manatili sa pwesto.
The almost 2-hour speech is Aquino's longest by far. Sentimental and personal, he praises individual efforts of common individuals in helping lift the country.
Sa bawat Pilipino nagtitiwala sa kapangyarihan ng maliliit na anyo ng kabutihan, kayo nga po ang gumawa ng pagbabago, so na po ninyo ito.
With 3 more years left of his presidency, Aquino has promises to keep and miles to go before he steps down. He sets the bar high, knowing full well the second half will define his legacy. Natasha Gutierrez, Rappler, Manila.
Customs Chief Rufy Biazon offers his resignation after President Aquino shames his bureau in the State of the Nation address. Aquino hit the Bureau of Customs for its, quote, personnel who are trying to outdo each other's incompetence. In his tweet, Biazon says he immediately offered his resignation following the president's speech. But in a second tweet, Biazon says Aquino told him, "My confidence in you remains the same." In his speech, Aquino says officials who cannot do their job don't deserve to remain in office. It's not clear if Aquino meant it for Biazon or other officials in the Bureau of Customs. Asked about this after the State of the Nation address, presidential spokesperson Edwin Lacerda says, quote, "There was no mention of a customs chief. It's more of the need for reform within an institution." The Senate opens the 16th Congress with new faces, but the chamber under its new leader faces old problems. Ay Makaraig reports.
Kapag sinabi po nating big man ng Senado, isang pangalan o isang tao lamang ang naiisip ng publiko.
It's the big day for the big man of the Senate and its 6 newest members. The 16th Congress opens, ushering in a new leadership with neophyte senators playing a key role.
I, having been elected
After taking their oath as one of so-called 24 independent republics, newcomers Sonia Angara and Grace Poe nominate their campaign manager Senator Franklin Drilon as the new Senate President. Senators Nancy Binay and J.B. Ejercito of the United Nationalist Alliance also take the floor for their leader.
Mr. President, fellow senators, I am very honored to nominate Senator Juan Ponce Enrile for Senate President.
With an overwhelming 17-6 vote, the staunch Aquino ally wins handily against Enrile, who automatically becomes minority leader. Other members of the coalition of the ruling Liberal Party and Nacionalista Party secure key posts, with the LP's Ralph Recto becoming Senate President pro tempore and the NP's Alan Peter Cayetano as majority leader. Drilon hails the historic moment, with the Senate bringing together the most number of young and female members. He urges his colleagues to pass bills for inclusive growth. But at a time when the Senate is under question, there are issues Drilon cannot ignore.
We recognize that the events in the past months have affected the perception of the people on the Senate. The institution has been affected. It thus becomes our individual and collective obligation to bring back the confidence of the people into this vital institution of democracy.
Recto says the Drilon administration will change the way the Senate uses public money.
Mas mahalaga yung usapin na paano natin gastusin ng tama yung pondo ng Senado at paano natin mababawasan yung pondo ng Senado, i-rationalize yung oversight committee sa halimbawa, ang mga bagay na ito lagi mahirap sa umpisa.
Binay and Senator Jinggoy Estrada vowed to support the initiative as part of a constructive minority. But for Senator Tito Soto, the majority cannot always expect their cooperation.
Depende kung paano ang trato kasi sa minority. Ganoon naman talaga yun. You reap what you sow. Probably be a different Congress as far as the Senate is concerned. Sabi mo mas marami ang minority ngayon kaysa sa dating minority. Mas maganda ang fiscalization ng Senado.
In the coming days, senators will finalize committee chairmanships and meet on Drilon's proposed reforms. Fun controversy pork barrel scam. The new Senate leadership plans to redeem the honor of the institution after all these scandals. But will they carry the reforms through? That's the challenge for a chamber with new faces but old problems. Ayi Makaraig, Rappler.
As the House of Representatives opens Monday, there's no doubt who the next House Speaker will be. Angela Kasaway reports the real race is in the minority.
Bulot Bigtang.
On the first day of Congress, it's the most anticipated part of the morning session. Representatives elect their speaker for the next 3 years. But for the 16th Congress, eyes are not on the speaker but on who would be the leader of the minority coalition. It is not a surprise Quezon City Representative Sonny Belmonte gets his second term as speaker with 245 votes. The race for House Minority Leader is more unpredictable. Up to the last minute, no one knows who would take the post. In a tight race, Zamora beats Romualdez 18-16. Despite the rivalry, the minority bloc will remain intact.
Those who voted for Congressman Romualdez will join us.
The minority coalition expected to welcome about 34 members, while the majority coalition expected to have at least 245 members, thanks to a stable coalition between the Liberal Party, Nationalista Party, and Nationalist People's Coalition, as well as added support from the United Nationalist Alliance and some party list members. As Belmonte takes his second term as Speaker, his goal is clear: overtake the achievements of the 15th Congress.
The greatest error we can commit today is to mistake the past deeds of the past 3 years as ends in themselves, and not merely as a preview of greater things to come.
The last Congress, after all, saw the passage of landmark laws on reproductive health and syntax, as well as the Corona impeachment. Under the same leadership, will the new House of Representatives manage to pass another set of landmark bills? They have 3 years to prove it, and the time starts now. Angela Kasaway, Rappler, Manila.
Only 1 in 7 lawmakers are new faces in the 16th Congress. Of the 234 representatives in Congress, there are only 34 first-term district representatives with no relatives who previously served in the lower house. Only 4 are political neophytes who have not held any elective posts. Broadcaster Sol Aragones of Laguna, Dr. Helen Tan of Quezon, dentist Marie Ann Pernes, and lawyer Lenny Robredo in Camarines Sur. 24 representatives were incumbent local officials when they ran for district office. 4 were former elected officials and 2 were former appointed officials. There are 29 first-time lawmakers in Congress, but their family names are not new in the chamber since 1 or more of their relatives served there. At least 21 of them are replacing relatives who served in the last Congress. Constituting a majority of the incoming lawmakers are 148 from the last Congress. At least 62 people are injured in a clash between police and protesters at a rally along Commonwealth Avenue before the State of the Nation address. At around 11 a.m., the protesters break the fence and cross the eastbound lanes of Commonwealth Avenue, trying to make it to the Batasan Road, causing heavy traffic in the area. Rocks and eggs are thrown at the police after the protesters failed to break the barricade. Former Bayan Muna Representative Teddy Casino suffers bruises in the scuffle. Anak Bayan says at least 41 protesters were injured, including 2 senior citizens. The Philippine National Police, on the other hand, says at least 21 policemen are injured. Catherine, the Duchess of Cambridge, is admitted to hospital Monday in the early stages of labor. Kensington Palace confirms the Duchess is admitted to St. Mary's Hospital in London. Kate and William's firstborn will be the third in line to the British throne. The birth of the couple's firstborn will be announced on a bulletin posted in front of Buckingham Palace. It will also be announced on Twitter on the official account of Clarence House. Well, let's now look at Rappler's Wrap for today, a list of the 10 most important events around the world you shouldn't miss. At number 3, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe will visit the Philippines this week. The Philippine Foreign Affairs Department says Abe's official visit will be on July 26 to 27. He will meet with President Benigno Aquino to, quote, discuss bilateral cooperation and regional issues and further advance the strategic partnership between the Philippines and Japan. Japan was the country's top trade partner and aid provider in 2012. At number 8, developers who make applications for the iOS platform may have been wondering why parts of the Apple developer website were offline. In an email Apple sent out to registered Apple developers, the company says someone tried to get into the developer website to take personal information. The email, which Rappler received on July 22, told users of a potential breach. The company says although sensitive personal information was encrypted, Apple says it's possible some developers' names and addresses may have been accessed. And at number 10, Superman and Batman will team up in a new film. The new movie is announced by director Zack Snyder, who's widely praised for rebooting the Superman franchise last month with Briton Henry Cavill in the title role. Batman has yet to be cast after Christian Bale hung up his cape after the third and final Dark Knight movie last year. The superhero double act could be seen as an attempt by studio giant Warner Brothers to hit the record-breaking success of last year's Avengers mega hit featuring Marvel characters. Snyder tells the crowd in San Diego's Comic-Con, "I can't wait to expand the DC comic book universe in this next chapter." For the full top 10, visit Rappler.com's The Wrap. Biologists say climate change will probably wipe out the world's most endangered cat, the Iberian lynx, within 50 years. In a report published in the journal Nature Climate Change, scientists say a dramatic shift in curbing carbon emissions is needed to save the lynx. Only around 250 of the animals live in the wild in southern Spain. The new study says current trends of rising temperatures and changing rainfall patterns will occur too fast for the lynx to adapt. But researchers say extinction can be staved off for the coming decades by overhauling conservation strategies. Every story on Rappler has a mood meter, which gives you 8 emotions to choose from. Click how you feel and your vote comes down to the mood navigator that's in the middle of the front page. That crowdsources the mood of the day. It also gives you the top 10 stories that have gotten the most votes on their mood meters. These 10 stories have affected our readers the most emotionally. If you take a look today, the story that's gotten the most number of votes, this is the live stream and the live blogs, all the interactive infographics as it happens. Hashtag Sona 2013. You see 6% annoyed, 8% angry, 9% inspired, and 65% happy. If you go to the site, you can see a breakdown by topic of how people felt about the President's State of the Nation address. Also, we take a look all around the State of the Nation address today. Aquino's presidential management style, you have 57% happy. And of course, you can't get away from sports. Ateneo pulls away to keep UP winless. That's 40% happy. The mood of the day, it's a green. Today, most people are happy. Well, that's nice to know. That is Rappler's Newscast for today, Monday, July 22, 2013. Visit Rappler.com and watch our newscast Monday to Friday. Tell us how you feel on our mood meter and help us crowdsource the mood of the day. I'm Maria Ressa. As we say at Rappler, tomorrow begins today.